Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on a special edition of BC Today in tribute to the mighty Orca. After hundreds of thousands of votes from you, our CBC audience, you have crowned the Orca, also known as the killer whale, as our province's best symbol. Today, we're heading overseas to Sidney on Vancouver Island with our bracket master, Justin McElroy, and some other special guests to dive into all things Orca, and we want to take your calls and emails, so please join us. I'm Dan Burrett, in for Michelle Elliott. Welcome to a special Friday edition of BC Today. And thank you for joining us on radio, television, and on our live stream. You can call us now on our top story, our one story of the day. What do you think of the Orca being voted BC's best symbol? Do you like it? Do you not? Did you vote for another symbol? Did you vote for the Orca? And why? Call us now across the province. The number is 1-800-825-5950. In Metro Vancouver, it's 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be pulled over or hands-free if you're driving or operating a machine. Email us, bctoday@cbc.ca, and you can comment on our CBC British Columbia TikTok page. For those of you hoping to hear from our master gardener, Brian Minter, today, he's graciously stepped aside so we can do this special. He's going to join us next Friday, August 22nd, and we appreciate Brian very much making room for this special today. So, to recap, it started with 64 symbols, all going head-to-head over 4 weeks. And after more than 400,000 votes from you, our audience, the mighty Orca swam past its competition and emerged the victor in CBC's search for the best symbol for BC. Let's head now to the Centre for the Salish Sea in Sidney on Vancouver Island, where we find the Grand Master of this bracket competition, resplendent in pins, Justin McElroy, and alongside him on the island host, resplendent in yellow, in the rain, Gregor Craigie. A great place to immerse ourselves and our audience in Orca lore. Welcome, both of you.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
So tell us about today. Tell us where you are, what's happening, and that setting. Why in Sidney?
Yeah, well, we decided to go to Sidney simply because, like you said, it is at the center of the Salish Sea. There are orcas that come by here all of the time, and it's a way to celebrate in a different place in this province what makes the orca so special, why we have such a deep connection to it. You know, Gregor, like Dan said, we got more than 500,000 votes on this over the last 5 weeks. There's so many amazing creatures and icons of this province, but the orca came up on top.
Absolutely, it did, and it's a common sight here. I'm not saying every day, but it's not uncommon to speak to people in Sidney, like I did this morning, who had just seen from the shore, not even out on the water on a boat, but out just walking by the shore and saw a pod of killer whales or orcas. So it seems like a fitting location. Nice to have you back on the island, Justin.
Nice to be here. And it's a reminder of just how connected orcas are to nature, just how connected we are to them. And here's a short video breaking down why the orca won and why it's such a great symbol of this province. It's black, white, and the best symbol in British Columbia.
I love orcas.
They're so iconic.
It is amazing to see them. My grandson is 2 and he goes, the whales, the whales.
So, how do you choose the best symbol in British Columbia? For more than 300 submissions from across BC, we created a list of 64 iconic symbols of this province and divided them into animals, parts of nature, symbols of the coast, and symbols of the rest of the province. The orca defeated the raven and sea otter to start out. It then bested the provincial bird and the Stellar's jay and the provincial mammal and the spirit bear. In the semifinals, it defeated the provincial tree, the western red cedar, and then in the final, emerged triumphant over the mighty totem pole. The best symbol in BC, the orca. But why?
People are so powerfully moved by them.
A big part is just how they look. Big but sleek, agile but playful, that distinct color contrast cutting against the blue ocean. But another part is their journey over the last 100 years, from criminals of the sea to a symbol of BC's natural world.
They're an indicator of the health of the entire province.
Which means that it's a tenuous symbol. The type of orca most associated with BC, the southern resident, now numbers just 73 in population.
It reflects the interconnectedness of the entire province. They rely on the salmon from BC's rivers and streams, which then rely on the forests.
The last 4 summers, Lauren Laturnus has come to Saturna Island as part of her master's program studying environmental science. Every day she monitors the animal population through this part of the Salish Sea. Aside from one day this summer, there's been no sightings of the southern resident orca.
It is a bit worrying because this is their traditional habitat and their summer foraging, their homes.
Orcas are at the mercy of their unique environment. They're also intelligent, communal, a symbol of strength and beauty, making them a pretty amazing creature and a pretty good symbol of this place we call British Columbia. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Sidney.
Fabulous recap, Justin. Let's go to a call now. They're coming in already. Monique joins us from Victoria. Monique, what do you make of the orca winning?
I'm so excited about it. I started at the beginning doing voting, and then I kind of lost. I was really hoping that the orca would win. So I'm super excited. And one thing that I've been really meditating on and sitting with as like a deep ecology person and ecosomatics and being outside a lot on the South Island here is the fact that the female orca, similar to the female human animal, both goes through menopause. And once they've gone through that incredible, powerful cycle where the body turns off the baby-making machine so that the female can stay alive for longer. I mean, this is a deep time metamorphosis that happens not in all mammals, but it happened in the orca and it's happened in the humans, and it's because then the female orca becomes a matriarch, and it was revered because she understands where the fishing grounds are. She understands the way to move with the pod. And I've just really, in this time of moving through my change, seen the orca as kind of like a little bit of a spirit animal, as a woman moving in a society that doesn't value largely women of a certain age. So I'm just like, yes, orcas all the way. I look to them for a lot of deep medicine and a lot of guidance of how we can move better in the world. So I'm happy.
Monique, thank you so much for the call.
Well, thanks for that call, Monique. Sorry, Dan. I didn't mean to interrupt old radio habits there. Great to hear from Monique, a perspective I have never once heard or considered.
Absolutely. Let's go to another call now. John is in Mackenzie, I believe. John, you have a very close encounter with an orca. Tell us all about it.
Well, hello. It was a bunch of orcas, actually. It was from Capilano River, where I used to kayak as a kid when I built a kayak in high school in West Vancouver. It was a canvas kayak, and I'd go from Capilano River up to Lighthouse Park and back on an afternoon after school. And one day I was getting close to dark, and a big black thing came up beside me, and a big, beautiful eye looked at me. And I looked and thought, whoa, this is way bigger than me, and I'm in a canvas kayak, and all of a sudden a bunch more eyes came up all around me. And it was a matriarch whale with a whole pod around her. And of course, she came up first, looked at me, and saw it wasn't a seal. And I was thankful for that at the time, because everything that went past me at the time put waves all around me. And I paddled back to Capilano River and put my canvas kayak back on my Toyota and drove home that night. And yeah, it was amazing. They are amazing animals, and I can see why they're number one.
What a great story. I'm so glad they didn't mistake you for a seal. Thanks for phoning in, and keep those stories, the orca killer whale stories coming. But we want to talk about a number of aspects around the orca and the deep meaning for Indigenous communities is certainly one of them. Orca is connected to their histories long before settlers arrived. And it's important to acknowledge the orcas' symbolism beyond the province. And for more on the Indigenous connection to orcas, with us now is Eric Pelkey, the Community Engagement Coordinator with the WSÁNEĆ Nation. I can't think of anybody better to do this. Eric, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gregor. Actually, my traditional name is Quitchkeenum. I'm the hereditary chief of Sayalt, too.
Now, can you give us a sense, Eric, the WSÁNEĆ have a special relationship with the orca. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, the WSÁNEĆ people consider the orcas to be our brother. We call it the little brother, and our traditional name for that is Kasalamuch, and it's a sacred creature to us, and because it is our brother and has always supported us, and we've supported them throughout the years. We've heard our elders talk about when the reef net system was still in place here amongst our people in the San Juan, the Gulf Islands, that the orca used to help our people by herding the salmon towards the reef nets. And so our people considered them to be sacred and to do no harm to them.
So sacred and like a family member. You're calling them your little brother.
Yeah, little brother. Kasalamachin, it was a name given to them when one of them passed on the beaches of Island View, and the people all gathered there, and then the sacred name was given to the orca, so all of the orcas became Kasalamachin.
What about in your day-to-day life, Eric? Do you come across them many times if you're out on the water or even just by the seashore?
Oh yeah, the Kasalamachin are a very playful creature. When they see people around, sometimes they'll start performing for them, and then jumping out of the water and going back and forth. And we are really grateful these days to see young Kasalamachin out in our waters again. And so we have started the Guardian program with the WSÁNEĆ Leadership Council, and our men go out there every day and make sure that the orcas aren't being bothered by boats.
Yeah, this is the Marine Guardians program. Can you tell us a bit about that, when it started and what the whole thinking was behind it?
Well, it started probably about 4 years ago. We saw the dangers that were being put to the Kasalamachin by the marine traffic. So our WSÁNEĆ Leadership Council got together with Parks Canada and created the program. And so we use our own people to be out on the boats and make sure that the Kasalamachin is being protected and being honored in the way that it should.
And how do they do that practically, Eric? Is it mostly eyes and ears on the water, making sure they're okay and other boats aren't getting too close, or what are they doing out there?
Well, they have a network of friends amongst all of the people that are out on the water. So when they see a Kasalamachin out there, or a school of them, they'll let each other know so that they can go out there and watch them, and they can get reports of anybody that's encroaching too close to them.
So what does it mean to you? We talked about WSÁNEC's deep, long connection to the orca. What does it mean to you to see the CBC audience choosing this as the symbol for the province?
Well, for us, it's really a connection to us, to the people, to recognize how much the Kasalamachin means to not only to us, but to the marine life in general. They are part of the cycle, and we know, especially when we start seeing more and more Kasalamachin, we know that there's more salmon in the area, and then the fishing's going to be good.
Eric, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Eric Pelkey, WSÁNEĆ Nation Community Engagement Coordinator. And great to have so many perspectives. We're going to get a lot more. Dan, are we going to go back to you? Are we doing calls?
We're going to do another call, yes. Let's go to Pamela in West Vancouver. Pamela, you've had a very close encounter with orcas before. Tell us about it.
Yes, the first time I ever kayaked in BC was in 1989. And I just thought I'd go out and sit in the ocean and see what happened. And suddenly I was surrounded by all 18 of J-Pod, including Granny, who was the oldest orca in the world. I think she died when she was 106. And Ruffles, a male, who had a 6-foot dorsal fin with a ruffle along the edge. And all the mummies and the babies, spy popping and rolling, and Ruffles actually breached right behind my kayak, and it started to fill up with water, and it was quite terrifying. And the whole experience was shocking, but it was so wonderful and such a spiritual experience that I'll never forget it from the rest of my life.
Pamela, thank you very much for the call. Justin, when you hear that kind of connection that people have, I don't want to say we take it for granted, but it is amazing. And your joke about anytime there's an orca off a BC ferry, it seems like the whole boat rocks when people are running to see it.
It is a spiritual experience for people. There are so many whales in the world. There's so many animals in British Columbia, and yet there's something innate about the orca and its personality and its shape that just moves people in a way that you don't see with anything else.
Mm-hmm. No kidding. And I understand we're taking more of your calls on the orca now. Give us a call now, 1-800-825-5950. Our number in Metro Vancouver is 604-669-3733. You can email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. We're going to read some of those in a few minutes. And on TikTok, we're at CBC British Columbia, and we're loving all of the input that you're bringing to us. I understand you have another guest, and we want to talk about the fact that orcas are top of the food chain in our Salish Sea.
Indeed, they are, Dan, and their well-being tells researchers an awful lot about the health of our oceans. Here in Sidney, we have a lot of access to seeing whales, whether it's from land or on one of the whale-watching vessels or just walking along the whale-watching trails. And a lot of people love to see a whale, of course. Joining us now to talk more about it is Lindsay Kolb, the Strait Watch South Coordinator for the CETUS Research and Conservation Society based here in Sidney. Good to have you with us, Lindsay. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, can you tell us more about the work you're doing here in the Strait?
Yeah, so CETUS has been operating since 2005, and we have 3 different locations around Vancouver Island, one up North Island, one off Quadra Island, and then one right around here in Victoria. And essentially during the summertime at each of those locations, we have a boat out on the water 7 days a week, and we're going to where there's whales and where there's lots of boats. And what we're doing is ensuring that all the vessel traffic is aware that there's whales near them and are keeping the proper distance and guidelines. And so preventing further incidents, as well as collecting a lot of data on what that vessel traffic around whales looks like.
Can you give us a Coles Notes, a quick version of the guidelines? How far back are boats supposed to be, and how are they supposed to approach?
Yeah, so in BC, in southern BC, regulations for killer whales are at least 400 meters away. Outside of southern BC, it's 200 meters. We also ask boaters to keep a speed below 7 knots within a kilometer of whales, because that really reduces the acoustic impact on the whales as well. But always more space, the better, turning off things like depth sounders, any sort of noise like that, and just taking it slow, giving them space, making sure they're not sitting in their path, things like that.
And in general, I'm asking you to generalize here, but how are BC boaters doing these days in terms of following those rules for the betterment of the orca?
Yeah, I mean, most people love whales. That's why they were, won this contest. So most people want to do the right thing and want to listen. So a lot of our work is just making sure people are aware. They don't necessarily know that there are whales right near their boat, or they aren't aware of the regulations. So we've actually found through our work that about 85% of people do listen to what we tell them. So people do care. They do want to help protect the whales.
What about the whales' food? There are reports of a record salmon run this year, and I wonder how that's affecting whales in this area right now.
Yeah, with the southern resident killer whales, which are the ones locally, they primarily feed on Chinook salmon. So they're still struggling to find a lot of food. We've actually seen very few of them this summer. We've only had about 3 days with them in the inland Salish Sea waters, which is quite a low compared to the historic where they would spend most of the summer around here. So they're still, likely struggling to find food, and because it's primarily that Chinook salmon that they eat.
Here's a question I've had from my 3 sons many times over the years, and I don't think I've once answered it satisfyingly. Why can't they just eat sockeye, or why can't they go after a seal or eat something else?
Yeah, in terms of seals, we do have transient or big killer whales. Those are the ones that eat other marine mammals like seals, but they're very different populations. So between the southern residents and the bigs, there's about 750,000 years of evolutionary separation. They're very different cultures. The southern residents live in very big family groups, are very vocal, compared to the transients, which tend to be in smaller groups, a little bit more quiet, so they can be a little sneakier on what they're hunting. So very different populations. And then in terms of the salmon species, Chinook are the biggest, the fattiest, and that's what, for hundreds of thousands of years, that's what they've been eating.
Lindsay, just before we wrap it up here, how did you feel when you heard that British Columbians had chosen the orca?
Very excited. I mean, they're such an iconic species and everyone loves them, and hopeful that the fact that they were chosen as a symbol will just kind of inspire more people to want to protect them.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Lindsay Kolb is the Strait Watch South Coordinator for the CETUS Research and Conservation Society here in Sydney.
Great to have her join us and give us some of that expertise. Justin, we're just about coming up to a break. I have to ask you quickly to react to Marjorie, who emailed us to write, I love the orca, but it's not unique to BC. Although BC has 3 distinct families of the species, the totem pole is unique to BC, and that's what I voted for. Lots of options people had, though, right?
They do, and in fact, Marjorie's a little bit incorrect there as well, because the totem pole, the Tlingit Nation, closer to Alaska, and in Alaska, also does totem poles, also in Washington State. That does happen from time to time now with the First Nations there. But this is the thing. There are so many parts of this province where people feel the connection towards and think that they have this special bond with, and certainly the orca is shared in many different parts of the world, but here and the way that they interact in the sea and the fact that the southern residents are so native specifically to this part, there's just something that grabs people, and that's part of the reason they voted for it as the best symbol.
Indeed they did, and in rather overwhelming numbers. We're going to take just a quick break in just a moment. We have more calls lining up. Barbara in Victoria, Margaret on Gabriel Island. Stay on the line. You are listening and watching BC Today. Still with the history of orcas. In BC, it has been tumultuous to say the least. Moby Doll was a young orca captured off our coast in 1964. It became a pivotal moment in changing public perception of orcas from monsters to beloved animals. He was brought to the aquarium and put on display. Here's a story from CBC from 2013.
Moby Doll's capture triggered an incredible global interest in orcas.
There was a huge rush on capturing more orcas and exhibiting them in aquariums around the world, which was a difficult thing because it really did deplete the pod.
American researcher Ken Balcom is credited with perhaps understanding the whales of Georgia Strait and Puget Sound better than anyone. He knows them all by name, and after 40 years of following them around, no doubt many of them even know him too.
We can tell them apart, we can count them, we can see how many are here. And at that point in our beginning, there were 70, and we went up almost to 100, and now we're back down, we're going on the slide. There's not enough food. Get rid of fish farms, start taking down dams, restore river systems, get wild fish populations recovered, get it going. We're losing the top icon animals, and we'll lose us.
Thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on the CBC News app, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Now, it is time for a news break. Let's go to Tarnjeet Parmar.
Good afternoon. The Shishals First Nation says 41 additional unmarked graves have been found near a former residential school. The nation on the Sunshine Coast says a team has been scanning the area around St. Augustine's with ground-penetrating radar for the last 18 months. It says the discovery brings the number of suspected graves at the site to 81 after initial findings were announced in 2023. More than 10,000 flight attendants are poised to walk off the job overnight, followed by a company-imposed lockout if Air Canada and the union can't reach an 11th-hour deal. The airline is cancelling around 500 flights previously scheduled to take off today in anticipation of the work stoppage. And firefighters on Vancouver Island say overnight rain has helped calm an out-of-control wildfire near Port Alberni. The BC Wildfire Service says about 7 millimeters of rain fell overnight, easing the behavior of the Mount Underwood fire to mainly a smoldering ground fire. It says in an update that up to 30 millimeters more is expected today, but it will not be enough to fully suppress that fire, and the rains could affect slope stability and cause problems with rockfalls and dangerous trees. About 80 fires are burning across this province, including 6 that are listed as out of control. Those are your news headlines. For more news, you can go to the website cbc.ca/BC.
Tarnjeet Parmar, thank you very much from the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Now, the winner of BC's Best Symbol was revealed this morning on CBC's The Early Edition and other morning radio programs across the province. A lot of suspense leading up to that big moment as panelists Ginger Gosnell-Myers, Bob Kronbauer, and Janice Wu joined us for that moment. Here's some.
Ginger, you were rooting for the Orca. Did you actually expect it to win?
I had high hopes that the Orca was going to win. Mostly because whenever we see orcas out in their natural environment, like, you're overcome with this sense of awe and it stays with you for so long. And it's hard to forget the feeling that you get when you actually see one. So I thought that type of feeling would bring the Orca all the way through to the end. And I'm thrilled. The Orca was my choice.
Now, Bob, you're originally from Vernon here. Are you, as an inlander, feeling at all put out by this?
It's a symbol of British Columbia's coast, yes, which is, to some, the most noble part of the province, the best part of the province, but it doesn't represent everyone. But I'm still rooting for the Cedar. So when the recount is finally done, perhaps the Cedar will come back in the semifinals because it represents everyone.
I don't think there's going to be a recount. I think it was a fairly significant victory here.
And yes, the winner revealed this morning on the Early Edition and other radio programs. A lot of suspense leading up to that moment. Those are the panelists, Ginger Gosnell-Myers, Bob Kronbauer, and Janice Wu, with Stephen Quinn on the Early Edition. Okay, so Justin's going to throw to his pack. Welcome back to BC Today. I'm Dan Burritt, in for Michelle Elliott. If you're just joining us, we're celebrating the victory of the Orca in the search for BC's best symbol. It defeated the runner-up, the totem pole, with 64% of the vote, and we have plenty of calls on the line. If you want to join us, it's 1-800-825-5950. In Metro Vancouver, the number 604-669-3733. You can email us bctoday@cbc.ca or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. You can let us know who you voted for. If it wasn't the Orca, who did you vote for? What do you think is BC's best symbol? Let's go back to Sidney on Vancouver Island. On the island host, Gregor Craigie, and of course, our bracket master, Justin McElroy. And you're holding something, sir, for the benefit of our listening and viewing audience. What have you got there?
I'm not going to interview the orca, but I have a plush, small little orca stuffy here that we got from a gift shop, and just showing to, of course, we see these in gift shops and souvenir places across the province. Part of the reason they're so identifiable with British Columbia. But, when you're celebrating what the best symbol in this province is, you have to go to the symbol. That's why we went to Sidney. But more than that, we wanted to see an orca itself. So yesterday, me and our camera person, Nick Allen, got on a whale watching boat owned and operated by First Nations in the area in the hopes of seeing an orca. What happened next? Here you go.
It can be a little bouncier in the waves in the front. We're not going anywhere that's going to be particularly rough. And do not worry about viewing. I always try and put the boat sideways to anything we're viewing. But we also, as an extra special bonus, have Toby from the CETUS First Nation.
Educating people about the killer whale and educating about our people's history, right? We were once called the ocean our highways. It kind of goes hand in hand now that we have this business and teaching about both.
My name is Nate. I do this in the summertime, and then the wintertime I like to do sailboat deliveries. And oh look, that is an elephant seal. So our first wildlife of the day, we haven't even left the dock.
Now, of course, there is no guarantee that we will see orcas today. For starters, we are keeping a respectful distance. And secondly, it's the morning. They haven't been spotted yet. So we're taking a slow route around, hoping that maybe they will be seen in the Saanich Inlet.
Hey, good morning. Just wanted to check in with you. I saw your route.
What you're looking for is the cloud of mist from when they come up for a little breath, or the tall black dorsal fin.
In Manitoba, we kind of think of mountains, we think of lakes, we think of oceans, and we think of whales, humpback whales, and orcas too.
Have you ever seen one before?
I have never seen an orca whale before. I'm really hoping to see one today.
All right, fingers crossed.
When we are within half a mile of them, we do not go full speed. We limit our speed to 7 knots. Yeah, I've got them. We are gonna go find ourselves some orcas. There we go, straight ahead of us.
Sometimes luck strikes. For the last 30 minutes or so, we've been surrounded by about 6 to 8 transient orcas. We've had our engines down, and we've just been watching them hunt for prey and enjoying the amazing sight.
I love them more every time I learn new things about them. They're really fascinating creatures. There are so many layers to, their levels of intelligence, their tactics for hunting, just their behavior, seeing them breach, seeing them tail fluking in the air. It's just lots of great stuff, and I haven't gotten bored of it yet anyway.
So what goes through your mind when you see an orca?
A simple awe, a good feeling. We say in our language, and just brings that good feeling. And to see something so big and so powerful be playful at the same time is kind of inspiring as well.
It was surreal. It was definitely worth the wait.
Pretty good story for your friends back home in Manitoba, hey?
Yeah, I think that some of them will be very jealous of this trip.
It is amazing to be in the stillness of the sea with no other boats around you and get to experience so many of those whales for that length of time. Everyone's enjoyment just radiating as they're seeing something that they might have dreamed their entire lives of having seen.
Justin and Nick and everyone who did that amazing feature. You lucky duck seeing those animals as up close as you can get. Let's go to the calls. They're stacking up. Barbara is joining us from Victoria. Barbara, what do you think of the orca winning?
Well, I had my fingers crossed the whole time, so I'm pretty happy.
Yeah. And what is it about that animal that you think makes it BC's best symbol?
Well, I feel like they are inspiring us to do something better with our environment than we have been, especially the southern residents. They're suffering, and I think about them all the time and read about them all the time and hope that things will get better for them. Every baby is like, woohoo, and, just keep my fingers crossed for them.
We appreciate the call, Barbara. Thank you very much.
I wanted to tell you about the experience I had with you.
Sure, we have a quick moment. Go ahead.
Okay. I was on a BC ferry coming from Tsawwassen to Swartz Bay, and we were in Active Pass, and all of a sudden the water was like boiling with orca. It was a huge number of orca all playing. It was southern residents. We had babies, everything. It reaching. The whole ferry seemed to tip to one side, and I'm sure everyone on the ferry really enjoyed the experience. It was amazing.
Those are the moments you do not forget. Let's see if we can. Amazing. We really appreciate your call, Barbara. Thank you very much for patiently waiting on the line. Let's go to Margaret, who's on Gabriola Island. Margaret, what's your experience, and what do you make of orcas being voted BC's best symbol?
Well, my experience was quite a bit north of all the islands, and we were in a good-sized boat. The engine was stopped. We were in an area where there were orcas, and we were watching the bubble netting that they form. The flat, calm water, there was bubbles in a circle coming up on the water, and we just waited. And then suddenly, up into the center of the bubbles, a huge group of orcas came up, mouths open, with fish. They'd encircle the fish down below.
Amazing. Margaret, thank you for sharing that with us. Gregor and Justin, we hear these stories all the time about the playful behavior, and we, as we hasten to mention as well, they are the ocean's apex predator, and you have a special guest with us to tell us a bit more about some of their behaviors.
Earlier in Victoria mentioned how much she's been thinking about the orca. I don't know a lot of people who've thought more about orcas, killer whales, than Mark Leiren-Young, who is the author of a number of books, including The Killer Whale, Who Changed the World, and Orcas Everywhere. Mark, great to see you.
Great to see you again.
Suitably attired for the day. Can you reveal the full shirt there?
Absolutely. This would be Scarlet, and she was known as the happiest whale in the world. And she only lived 3 years. She's featured in the Royal BC Museum exhibit on orcas that's touring the world right now. And I wrote that exhibit. So,
what does it mean to you that the CBC audience, hundreds of thousands of votes, chose the orca, and by a wide margin?
I think it's fantastic. Also, the orcas are the apex predator out there in the ocean, so they're going to win most contests.
Were you surprised that it won?
A little bit. I was really thrilled that the orca won, but yeah, I was really happy they won.
When did you first become interested in orcas?
Really, they took over my life when I discovered the story of Moby Doll, who was the first killer whale in captivity. And what blew my mind about that story was that, to me, it was first contact with an alien creature, right? Up until July 16th, 1964, when people saw orcas, when people saw killer whales, they were afraid of them. They had roughly the same reputation as great white sharks in the Jaws era. And, we had a machine gun on the banks of Campbell River to take out the orcas, to take out the killer whales, the dreaded killer whales. And then the Vancouver Aquarium accidentally captures one, people get to know one, and suddenly, in a span of roughly 3 months, we went from monster, which is how CBC News described the killer whale that was captured. The Vancouver Aquarium has captured a monster, to Vancouver's beloved killer whale. Just like that. It was amazing.
Now, can you take us back and just unpack that a little bit? Because now, of course, there's widespread consensus that you don't want to keep such a magnificent animal cooped up. However, at the start, when the Vancouver Aquarium got people up and close and personal, it made a fundamental psychological difference or societal difference, did it?
Oh, absolutely. You had this amazing shift in attitudes, and it really was almost overnight, where you went from, these are monsters, to, wow, these are really smart, to, oh, maybe it's not such a good idea to keep something so smart in a tank. And the more we learned why it wasn't a great idea to keep an acoustic, incredibly social animal with an incredibly complex family relationships in an area where they couldn't hear, they couldn't swim, they couldn't do any of the things that they do.
And it was sort of that two-step where people seeing the orcas in captivity went, what an amazing creature. But, but researchers were also able to go, hang on here. This is something else. Look how interesting these are. We've given these short shrift from an intellectual and social capacity as well.
Well, one of the huge shifts was Paul Spong was I think he was a neuroscientist, and he was studying Scanna, which is named my podcast because of that, at the Vancouver Aquarium. And he quickly realized Scanna was training him. He was doing this test, and Scanna kept getting it right, kept getting it right, kept getting it right. And then Scanna got bored and started doing it wrong over and over and over and over. And he realized Scanna was training him. So he goes to this anti-nuke organization called Greenpeace and convinces them that what they really need to be doing is saving the whales. So you've got this incredible movement from, orcas are monsters, the federal government has decided we need to kill them all, to Greenpeace coming out of that, going, we need to save them all.
In just 3 to 5 years. And we
almost
orcas have stayed the exact same during this entire time, but our understanding of them has been tied with the environmental movement. And that's been a big part of this story.
Oh, absolutely. And, when we talk about the orcas, when you're looking at the orcas winning, to me, the icons of the icons, the symbol of the symbols, are the southern residents. And because those were the ones being captured, the salmon eaters that you were talking about earlier, there's only 73 of them left. And to me, one of the great things about this contest and raising awareness, last month there was a study, 31 scientists from around the world basically went, these are the things we need to do to keep the southern residents alive. So to me, it's fantastic the orcas are getting this kind of PR now. And we can maybe transform that love and treat them, less like symbols, more like citizens.
We don't have time to go through all 73, Mark, but can you touch on some of the top ones? What are some of the changes needed, especially for the southern resident killer whales?
The biggies, salmon, 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 salmon. Anything we can do to bring back the Chinook salmon. I interviewed your first guest, Eric Pelkey, and he was talking about the importance of basically closing down the herring fishery for a bit so you can bring back the salmon, so you can save the orcas, save the southern residents, and also, his people who need those herring, who need those salmon.
People hear about a good sockeye run this year, but that shouldn't distract.
It's all about the Chinook for these guys. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, and they basically evolved to hunt Chinook because they were the most abundant. They were huge. I remember as a little kid, we had salmon derbies in BC, and the salmon were definitely my size as a little kid, and very quickly they were gone. Right? If you had a salmon derby now, you'd be lucky to find a salmon. That's not the way our ocean should be.
What about your own memories? When was the first time you saw an orca?
First time I saw a whale would have been Scanna, Vancouver Aquarium, and getting splashed by her. But I've had amazing outings since. And I was lucky enough to see Granny, the 100-year-old matriarch of the orcas. Was lucky enough to see, Tahlequah out there, who's the J-pod orca everybody knows, who carried her dead daughter for 17 days in 2018, right? And it's fascinating because J-pod, those are the rock stars, because those were the most resident of the southern residents. So Moby Doll, Tahlequah, Granny, all J-pod. So the orcas most people have heard of, they're all from J-pod.
Mark, great to see you. Thanks for taking part with us in this special broadcast.
Oh, thank you so much for doing this, and yay orcas.
Mark Leiren-Young is the author of The Killer Whale Who Changed the World and Orcas Everywhere, among other books. Actually, if we had named the octopus, Justin, we could have done a whole hour with Mark. Fascinating guy on the octopus, really. Fascinating, but we're not talking about the octopus. Stay on focus, Craigie. Dan, I'm a little punch drunk.
No, that's all. That's all right. You have done your time. You're doing the overtime. We appreciate it. Let's go to our calls. Ian is in Victoria. What do you make of the orca being voted BC's best symbol?
I don't think it's a bad choice at all. Not at all. It's coastal, but it's a very coastal province, and they truly are fascinating creatures. Absolutely magical to encounter. There's one thing I find very, very intriguing. I'm not 100% on this. Experts can correct me if I'm wrong, but like other cetaceans that use echolocation, they are able to perceive through one another. They don't just see the exterior. They're able to perceive the heart beating, blood coursing through the vein. Pardon me. So from the time they're born to the time they pass, they're essentially transparent to one another. I mean, it's pretty hard to tell a lie when you can be seen through, right?
Indeed. Ian, we appreciate your call. Justin, I mean, that speaks to, and you talked about this in some of your pieces, the importance of the family unit in orca families and them being a matriarchal society.
Yeah, and their ability to perceive what's around them is so heightened and so in tune with nature that, again, that connection that people have, and we heard that from Mark in terms of Paul Sprong, the researcher, who still is on Alert Bay, actually, being able to essentially have a conversation at a certain point. And it's just incredible, these connections that people make with them.
People make really deep connections. I first saw this firsthand back in 2002 as a younger CBC reporter up in Telegraph Cove. Paul Spong was close by, and it's when many of our audience will remember Springer, the lost killer whale down in Puget Sound, was transported in a giant tank on a barge up to Telegraph Cove to be reunited, and Springer was reunited. But people were viscerally emotional, Justin. And I remember thinking, as somebody who grew up in the prairies, wow, people here really love their whales, and of course I grew to understand why. But it's very personal as well as many other levels.
It's so personal, and it's been built up over decades and decades now. You know, it's why it was a slam dunk for the orca to be named the mascot for the 1994 games.
That's right.
And
Victoria
Klewick. It's why for the Vancouver Canucks, Finn is their mascot. It's why it's, you know, for the 2010 Vancouver Olympics, it was Miga, half orca, half spirit bear, two of our symbols in this competition. You know, it just makes it such an obvious choice. And, you know, Mark said, you know, he was sort of surprised that the orca won. It's sort of like when the best team in the NHL wins the Stanley Cup. You know, on one hand, it should win. On the other hand, that only happens when people are voting online 30-40% of the time. Yeah. So we can't say whether people got it right, but it's certainly a smart and good choice.
I've got a quick question for you about the pins on here. Justin is famous for a lot of things, including these municipal pins and the two spoons. But does the orca appear on any of these municipal pins, Justin?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we have one. I'm not sure whether it's an orca, but it's certainly a whale for Burns Lake up here.
Oh, yeah.
As we zoom in there with Indigenous art. I know for Seashell, there's one as well. I know that I have a few Klewick pins as well. I'm not sure whether it's on it, and I'm not sure whether we can devote all of our time to looking throughout my jacket at these. Right. But, you know, it's a situation where across this province, even when you're more coast interior as well, people feel that connection. People go, this is an animal in this province and around this province that we feel this innate connection to. So we make it mascots, we make it stuffed animals, we put it on pins somewhere around here, and it's why people vote for it as the best symbol of this province.
Yeah, you really need more pins in your Canadian tuxedo. Let's go to Ferdinand in Vancouver. Ferdinand, what do you make of the orca being chosen BC's best symbol?
Okay, I actually think this is a poor choice. I think it can be a very dangerous animal. There's a 1977 documentary called Orca. A person, now he was trying to capture the orca, and he shouldn't have done that. And he was pregnant, and it miscarried on board. And after that, the male orca, the female died. It was chasing this person and killed several people. So it's a shocking documentary called Orca. Okay. I urge people to watch it. And we've seen in recent years, these reports of orcas in various parts of the world sinking boats. So I don't know. I'm not sure about this choice.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your call. And you know what? Just picking up on that, Ferdinand, we did have, and Justin and Gregor, I'll put this to you, we had some emails as well. This was not a universal choice for people who chose to vote. Ken in Nelson writes, these whales exist all over the world. Nothing special about them in BC. I think the red cedar would have been more representative of the province. And Lisa says, I've had a number of encounters with orcas. One special memory pardon me, is summer I spent in Rose Harbor, and there was a very small island you could walk out to, and I'd wait till I heard them breathing and knew that soon a few would be passing a few feet from me in the channel. We did hear that, Justin, and other people who said it's not representative of the entire province, but people did get a chance to vote. So remind us some of the other symbols that were in the running.
Democracy, right? The worst form of governance, and online voting, except for all others. But when you look at what the orca defeated, it defeated the Steller's jay, the provincial bird. It defeated the spirit bear, the provincial mammal. In the semifinals, it defeated the red cedar, the provincial tree. So, it's interesting when we talk about something that is seen all throughout the province, the dichotomy of the coast versus the interior, of the connections that are made to people. You sometimes aren't going to get something where everyone feels included. But this is the thing also about symbols, is that it's not the question of what unambiguously is 100% positive for everyone, but the one that sort of sums up the overall feelings of a place. And so it's interesting to hear that rebuttal. At the same time, it's a reminder that symbols can mean many things to many people, but they don't mean the same thing to everyone.
Well, I was just going to say that symbols become symbols in their own right. I sympathize to a large extent with Ken and Nelson, having lived there. I've never once seen an orca in Kootenay Lake, so I get your point, Ken. But on the other hand, the orca is a magnificent symbol. And I remember growing up in the prairies and thinking, well, wait a minute, what's the maple leaf as a Canadian symbol? There were no maple trees around me, but it became the symbol of Canada. And I think maybe the orca could do the same for all of British Columbia.
Absolutely. And, part of it is the conversations that we have throughout this, and we get to explore those tensions of different parts in this province and the different things that orcas can mean. And so we hear you, Ken. We hear people that voted. We got more than 500,000 votes in this competition. Not all of them were from the orca, but it's fascinating to think about why it went. It's also fascinating to think of the reasons why people wouldn't have voted for it.
Gentlemen, I'm going to jump in. Sam is our last caller. Sam in Vancouver. I've got about 30 seconds. What do you think of the orca?
I'll do the best I can.
Sure.
While I probably would have voted for the red cedar, I do want to say that I remember the first time, I think it was the first time that I saw whales, and I just want to underscore the fact that sometimes we have a visual impression that's made on us. It registers in the stomach, and it leaves an imprint forever and ever and ever. And that's what happened to me when I saw the orcas for the very, very first time. It was a jaw-dropping experience. I watched them pass in a bay where I'd been up for 2 days smoking fish, and I saw them in the bay, passing in front of me, many of them. I ran out to the edge of the bay, and I just watched it, and I can conjure that up anytime I want. Sometimes people may have that imprint by a sunset or maybe a bear or whatever it is. It certainly happened with me and the orca, though I think I probably would have voted for the red cedar.
Sam, we appreciate your call. A great note to end on, and I want to thank Justin McElroy, the bracket master, and on the islands, Gregor Craigie, for steering us through wonderful guests in Sidney as we mark the orca winning and everybody over there. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And yes, Justin, you get to keep that plush toy and bring it home.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
You can listen to the show again on the CBC Listen app and watch us on demand on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. To the team that put this together this week, Ali Patargi, Allison Cole, Zamir Karim, Greg Kisser, Brad Stewart, Mel Carter, George Baker, Melody Jacobson,